Today I will be refuting the claim the judicial system is likely to make mistakes in the imposition of the death penalty. My opponent's secondary claims are, number one, flaws in the judicial process endangered innocent people on death row, and number two, death row inmates are defended by incompetent lawyers. To begin, my opponent's proposition states that the judicial system is likely to make mistakes in the imposition of the death penalty. Although the death penalty is a controversial topic, there is no doubt that the judicial system makes mistakes. The judicial system is made up of humans, and since humans are fallible, the risk of executing the innocent can never be eliminated. This brings me to my opponent's first supporting claim, flaws in the judicial process endangered innocent people on death row. It is inevitable that humans are likely to make mistakes, and it's also important to remember that most evidence when convicting someone is dependent on humans. According to AmnestyUSA.org, factors that lead to wrongful convictions include police and prosecutorial misconduct, perjured testimony and mistaken eyewitness testimony, racial prejudice, community/political pressure to solve a case. All these factors include human interaction, which brings me back to my point that humans are fallible and puts a person's life at risk. According to the Death Penalties Information Center, the number of death sentences per year has dropped dramatically since 1999. In 1999, there were 277 death sentences. In 2011, there were only 78. From this information, it is seen that the judicial system is taking more precaution when sentencing a person to death. My opponent's secondary supporting claims states that death row inmates are defended by incompetent lawyers. In my opponent's speech, he stated that death row inmates are defended by incompetent lawyers. He claimed that these lawyers have been disciplined, suspended, or disbarred. According to the Death Penalty Information Center, the attorneys assigned to the defendants who cannot afford their own attorneys are overworked, underpaid, or lack the trial experience required for death penalty cases. These lawyers are considered incompetent because they do not have the adequate resources to fulfill his or her obligations and are not adequately compensated. Due to this lack, these attorneys fail to adequately represent their clients. My opponent also lacked to inform why it is that the court-appointed lawyers failed to do a thorough representation and why incompetent lawyers were hired in the first place. According to the New York Times, in Alabama, fees for lawyers in private cases start at $125 an hour, but court-appointed lawyers in Alabama capital cases are only paid $20 an hour for out-of-court work. For work in the courtroom, these lawyers are paid $40 an hour. The state also assumes that a lawyer needs no more than 100 hours to prepare for each phase of the trial. This system also is used in other states, not only Alabama. The fee system and the amount of time given to prepare for the trial serves as a disincentive for their representation. In conclusion, as my opponent's proposition stated, the judicial system is likely to make mistakes in the imposition of the death penalty. To support his main claim, he stated that 1. Flaws in the judicial process endangered innocent people on death row, and that 2. Death row inmates are defended by incompetent lawyers. It is important to remember that the judicial system consists of human beings who try to avoid making mistakes but are sometimes unsuccessful. Even though the death penalty is risky according to Current Events, a weekly reader publication, a benefit of the death penalty is that it serves as a deterrent to those who might commit crimes in the future, and by seeing a criminal being executed, people see that they can't get away with violent crimes themselves.
All right. Well, I thought at the beginning that you set up an idea here that would be the crux of your argument, because you kind of emphasized that word likely, that this is going to produce some particular effect. And then I thought, okay, well, your argument is really going to be about how infrequent these kinds of issues are, or how unlikely it is going to be, or how there are measures to protect against those kinds of things. And in my head, I'm seeing that, and I'm imagining a pretty strong response. And then you get to the supporting points, and you just basically repeat this idea, look, mistakes are inevitable, and then you tell us why we're going to make a whole bunch of mistakes, and why the system sucks, and why people are screwed if they get charged with this. And I'm going, man, you've got better evidence on this than the advocate did. You're proving their point with this particular information. Why are you doing that? That information didn't seem to make any sense to me from the position that you were taking. Now, you did have one piece of evidence on that first point that I thought maybe you could make an inference from, and that you did try to make an inference from, and that is that there's been a drop in the number of cases, capital cases, and death penalty sentences. And you kind of make this inference that it is because that we are being a little bit more careful about that. But that's a big assertion that's going on there. It may have to do with the amount of crime that's happening, any of those kinds of things. So I was a little taken aback by the evidence that you had on that first point. Then on the second point, holy criminy, it's like the same thing happens again. Are they represented by bad lawyers? Well, they only get paid $20 an hour, $40 an hour when they're in court. What kind of crap-ass lawyer would want to take a case at that level? You know, I think what you're saying here is, yeah, they're represented by lousy lawyers who get lousy pay. And, you know, Alabama does this and other states do this. And I'm going, well, okay, well, how does this respond to the advocate's argument? It doesn't respond to the argument. It simply elaborates on it and explains it more. And again, I think you're making a stronger argument for them than you are against that particular point. At the end, there is a general statement about the potential benefits of the death penalty that would outweigh some of these kinds of things. Okay, so this might be a mitigating argument that would reduce the significance of the advocate's claim in some way, but it's not really developed very much. You mentioned that there might be a deterrent effect, but you don't provide any evidence to show that there's a deterrent effect. And so as a consequence, I think we're kind of left hanging on that. It's nicely organized. I do think you have a good idea here with the issue of arguing about whether or not it's likely, but the evidence that you present, like I said, seems like instead of responding to the claim, it provides firmer grounds. It's like you've created backing for the original argument, and I think that that is problematic. All right, thank you.